So Amanda, I'm very happy to have you here for the talk.
I'm able to be here.
I'm just going to read what is in the program here as well. The title is Taking a Spiritual Approach to Scientific Knowledge, an origin story for a modern worldview in poetry form. The forming of the universe, to our solar system and Earth, to the origins of life, and finally to the journey of humanity. This poem was my personal attempt to synthesize what I know about our collective origins. I'm an Anglican Christian in background who has dabbled in paganism and Buddhism, but I found my deepest connection with my spirituality in the classroom. So let us be your classroom.
As you know, I was going to speak before and whisked myself away to the classroom. So now I'm grateful I get to come back and share with my faith community. I did write a poem last year, and I'm going to share that with you today. It's 12 stanzas. We may only read 9 of them because it is broken up into 2 pieces, a more scientific piece, and then later a piece on the journey of humans, and it's more political. So I'm going to give some background on my spiritual journey and how I got to the writing of this poem, then read the poem, and then afterwards open it up for question and discussion. So I grew up in the Anglican Church, and I loved it. When I was a member of that faith community, I enjoyed the practice of having a spiritual community. I enjoyed singing songs and sharing communion with one another and having candles and doing readings. And I enjoyed having several dozen grandparents. But the heart of what we were talking about didn't mean that much to me. Why are we talking about Samaritans and Israelites and the Egyptians? These stories don't seem relevant to me in my everyday life. They don't touch our modern experience as much as I would have liked. But when I'm in a setting which is more scientific, more educational, I vicariously get to experience what I believe are the most spiritual moments of another person. People have studied the universe and have uncovered more truths and more layers of truths and millions more truths than we could possibly have imagined existed before. I only have a few of these memories myself because I haven't been a research scientist. But one of my first moments where I felt the universe made sense was in about grade 4. And our teacher was talking to us about the biology of plants, just very basic leaves and flowers. And he asked us why the leaves were arranged the way they were. And nobody had an answer. And we thought about it, none of us had an answer. And then all of a sudden, I had the answer. They were spread out the way they were so they could each capture sunlight. And when I had the answer, and I lit up, and he lit up in response to me lighting up, that is the first moment where I'm like, yes, this makes sense. The world is a wonderfully ordered, miraculous place where things happen for a reason. And so I got fed, I got nourished with ever more of these experiences. In high school, I took biology and chemistry and physics. And it's incredible that we get to open up our school books and know things that we now take for granted. that humans a few thousand years ago had no way to access this knowledge. We now have, for instance, a map of the world. Well, most cultures only knew their little part of the world. We now know that the earth is round. We now know that we orbit the sun. Such basic things. We know about gravity. But if you didn't have these explanations, you would still look for them. You would still make up stories and poems and writings. You would still wonder how we got here and why things are the way they are. That need, I think, is a spiritual need that's in all of us, that's very deep. And all people try to fill that need. And all communities, all tribes, they build a religion. They build stories that say why they're meaningful, why the world is the way it is, how we fit into it. They give background, they give context. And these are fascinating. And so many cultures have them, and I think they're really beautiful. I've come across a number of different faith traditions, and I've enjoyed each of them. But again, I've been frustrated by the dogma that just doesn't feel true to me. And so, I'm torn. There's this calling on one side of me where I feel a need to stand in awe and glorify and be amazed the same way that everyone else does. But the things I feel that we're being taught to be amazed by aren't as inspirational as I need. They're not as grand, they're not as big. Now that we know there's all of the universe out there, and something like 43,000 different known galaxies just within our range of vision. What is a God that can make one earth? Our faith traditions, as beautiful a collective imagining as they all are, I don't feel they're big enough, sophisticated enough, deep enough for what we're learning about what is around us. And so when I got to the University of Victoria and I studied yet more science, environmental studies and ecology and geography, I had a great deal of trouble connecting with my Christian roots. I started to drop away the things, saying the things that I didn't believe, and I started to translate some of the words that I didn't believe. And it came to the point where I simply found that I was not able to stay in service. I was not feeling a sacred connection when I was there. I was only feeling discomfiture. And so I kept looking for this connection because I think it's vital to me and to each of us. Where can I stand in awe of what is? And at times and places that can be the natural world. And I'm sure so many of you know when you go for a hike and stand on the top of a mountain, or go to the river or the lake and watch the waves come in, or watch the sunrise or the sunset. I'm sure it touches you just as deeply. I'm sure you stand in awe. But where can we stand together and share what is in our hearts? So I dabbled in other religions and found many beautiful things, but nothing for me as magnificent as what I find in a textbook. For me, they're my holy books, because they give an explanation that just seems to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and we haven't reached the end of it yet. And so while I admire the way Buddhists look at the mind and at the activity of the self, and found a lot of value for how to live my life, I didn't find the awe that I was craving. When I dabbled in the Wiccan tradition, I admired that they connected with the seasons and honored the sun and the moon and the solstices and the equinoxes. These are things for me that I can make sense of on my level as well. I am amazed that tiny, tiny little creatures that exist for the blink of an eye have the capacity, the consciousness, to look back deeper, deeper into the small levels of the universe and the big levels. We're able to look back in time and see the beginning of the universe and forward to see what might be the end of it. We're able to look inside ourselves and see our DNA and how all life is connected, and outside of ourselves and see what other life might be out there. This is astonishing. And I feel it might be the universe has become so complicated that it's able to look back on itself and reflect on itself. And I think that is the most sacred and astonishing thing. So I dabbled in various faith traditions, but didn't find what I was looking for. And then I went through a period of depression, which I will go into perhaps another time. And I like to write. I always have. It helps me process my emotions. And this was a very big emotion, the awe of the universe. And there was a writing contest in 2014, and I did not write anything for it. And when it came around again in 2015, I thought, okay, you said you were going to write something, you better write something. So I sat down and spent about 2 weeks writing this. This is a synthesis of what I've learned in my science classes. I think in different faith traditions and religions, they have a mythology. It fits their worldview. It makes the world make sense for them. And I think depending on what they are, perhaps it's an agricultural people, and their faith is built around fertility and the crops and the seasons. Their stories about that make sense. And their origin story for themselves as a people makes sense in that context. And so I've seen it again and again that different cultures build religions and build their mythologies and their origin stories to make their place in life make sense to themselves. I have never yet found a faith tradition that makes sense out of the universe that we now are uncovering and our place in it. And so when I started writing this poem, I looked at chunks of my notes and wrote down the best pieces and started to think I was going to write a poem called Cosmic Fire. I thought it was going to be on fire and lightning and nuclear processes. But when I started to write it, I realized that the only way for me to write it was to start at the very beginning. This is my origin story. This is the origin story for all of us. But this is my synthesis of how we got here and what the universe is and what our place in it is. I had to start at the very beginning, at the origin, for a scientific people. Because we don't treat this incredible amount of knowledge that we've gained. We don't treat it as sacred. We don't treat it as our sacred text that guide our way. And yet for me it is. And I find it deeply inspirational. And so it may not be the most incredible poem ever, but it is what I had to write down how I feel about the universe. So when I wrote it in one long piece, and then when I had Jason and my brother and mother review it, my brother suggested that I break it into two pieces, two poems, because one is more or less strictly scientific, and the other, because it gets into where humans start to exist, becomes more political. And my brother thought, well, you can't mix the two. They are different emotional themes. They should be two different poems. So depending on our time, we might read one or both. And I would like to invite other people to read stanzas of the poem aloud. So I will read the 1st, the 9th, and the 12th if we get that far. I would ask people to volunteer to read other stanzas if they would feel comfortable doing so. Moment, I'll start reading the first stanza. Is there anyone who would like to read the second? And I wasn't sure what to call the poem. And then I remembered Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time. And so I called it A Brief History in Rhyme. It is deliberately written to be rhyming, and it's deliberately written to have some kind of sense of rhythm. Again, I'm not magnificent at poem writing, but a lot of our religious, spiritual traditions were oral history. People sang songs to one another, and we thus remembered knowledge and passed it on from generation to generation. And so I found it fitting to write down my origin story of scientific knowledge as a poem. And I find it very fitting that I get to share it and read it out with you. A Brief History in Rhyme. Singularity, cosmically all, comically small. Pregnant pause, comma, biggest bang, mama. Embryonic universe, energy in verse. Exploding expanse of quantum chance. The paced chime of space-time. Rule innovation, jewel coagulation. Quirks to particles, matters articles, spun, charged, and mated, differentiated, aeon, proton, neutron, electron.
Fusion, collision, fission, division, gravity source, nuclear force, stellar ignition, photon emission, electromagnetic sine waves, frenetic, self-propagated, induced, and fated. Stars, life cycle, fuel to recycle. Elements forged, violently disgorged. Tremulous gust, nebulous dust. Brown dwarf night. Red giant might. Supernova white. Black hole bright.
And who would like to read the third stanza?
Stars drift and surge, galaxies emerge, blackest of light, not yet in sight. Milky Way's arm spirals safe from harm, gases smash and stick, bodies brick by brick. Earth beneath, sun's bequeath, heavy bombardment, cratered escarpment, catastrophic impact, core to crust cracked. Swift revolution, eject a solution, miniature satellite, the moon in flight, golden solar light, albedo by night.
The fourth stanza.
Day more hours fades, years get fewer days, far constellations, star tessellations, magnetosphere around, atmosphere abound, magma's inner core, lava's crustal floor, meteorites, water from heights, water vapor rain, roiling seas rhyme, axial tilt with seasons built, equator to poles, Coriolis rolls, light-struck gases, aurora passes, electrical arc, thunderclap, hark!
The fifth stanza.
Dry land rises free, separates earth and sea, tectonic stride, chronic slide, mid-ocean spread, volcanic seabed, mountain range lift, sediment shift, land bound in ice, pressure like vice, glaciation end, sun ministrations send, 365, billionth sun dive, current of wind and wave, ocean vent and tidal cave, carbon, oxygen, phosphorus, nitrogen, life.
The sixth stanza.
Protein, RNA, helical DNA, archaea and bacteria, membrane bound area, prokaryotic, eukaryotic, internally complex, membranes flex, community gel, colonial cell, homeostasis, ongoing basis, ATP prevalent, entropy circumvent, osmotic pressure, H2O measure, phagocytosis, phagocytosis, drink water in, eat small kid.
The seventh stanza.
Fish egg mastered.
Oh, that's the ninth stanza.
Oh, I'm
Seven.
sorry. Okay, sorry. New evolution, sexual solution, dual chromosome, unravel histone, daughter from parent, base pairs errant, replication error, uniqueness bearer, a continuity into infinity, all life related, all life equated, until extirpated, progress negated. Predator eat prey, defenses do pay. Symbiontics live, mutually give. Closely entwined, two, now one kind.
And the eighth stanza.
Speciation, ever, extinction, never. Varied protista, I for new vista. Two fungi spore, two nuclei more. Plant photosynthesis, a cell wall thesis, animal motility, cephalic utility, tube within tube, digestion improve, not to cold short backbone, open jaws to own, builds, meant for ocean, lungs, or a new notion, lengthen limb on land, strengthen falling hand, toughen skin to air against the wind.
I'll read the ninth stanza. Fish egg mastered, amphibian plastered, leather shelled, reptile egg held, sauropsids fall, therapsid's ball, placental viviparity, parental charity, middle ear bone, jaw hinge grown, mammals sweat milk, hair like silk, large neocortex, consciousness vortex, primate tree abode, ape savanna stroked, bipedal hominids, novel stone cuspids, man, such as we are, bones of a star. And so there is 3 more stanzas in the next poem. Would we like to read them, or would we like to do discussion now?
I think we should go on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. We are a part of the whole.
And so who would like to read the 10th stanza?
Hunter-gatherer, language blatherer, tribes migrate, intercalate, adapting technology, forming mythologies, dancing, painting, and song to keep peacefulness strong. Fear will find strange, war brings hard change, gradually finding grain for the grinding, livestock to tend, fences to mend, industrial drive, consumption arrive, sedentary trend, market ways to bend, trusting education for eventual salvation.
And who would like to read the 11th stanza?
Quality life sought, science brought. We idolize tech, computers to spec. But at a price we rolled the dice. Globalized cash, itemized crash. Ecology plunder, capital blunder. Stupefy the masses, inequity surpasses. Wealth born on the back, those who now lack. Destruction wrought, target overshot. Greenhouse gases, underpaid classes, extinction, imminent reaction, ambivalent.
Truth singer, bell ringer, sentry shake up, gently wake up, conflict mediate, hope demonstrate, decisions to make, culture quake, community spirit, sovereignty, cheer it, earthly well-being, compassion freeing, sanctify feelings, signify healing, remember to give to all who live, occupy your uprising, be surprising, activism is doable, life is renewable. Was the poem. Thank you for being participatory and helping me read.
Thank you.
And now, feelings, comments, questions, anything anyone wants to say?
How long did it take you to write that book?
About 2 weeks, about a week to start with, to get the bones of it, and then to fight with the actual wording and the rhyming and the meter, and to get help editing it the second week.
Yeah, that's important. Getting the meter.
Yeah, I'm quite impressed with the poem, even though I'm sorry to say this, it doesn't cross for me. I don't understand.
It's very technical.
Yeah, well, I like technical, and I really enjoyed what you were talking about in life sense. I wish you got more into that, like your life experiences.
I can get into some more of that.
Yeah, please. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
I appreciate it, though, that you had some readings from some scientists, because I find it not just a thing that I am longing for. I think that a lot of people who study the natural world, whether they be naturalists or whether they be scientists or some combination thereof, I feel like they also are craving the same sort of thing that I'm craving. I'm just a student. I only have 2 years post-secondary in these types of sciences. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who are PhDs. They have spent so much of their life studying something, and they may know everything there is to know about that something. And it is incredible that we get to add our knowledge to one another. And I am just blown away that we get to be each other's prophets and share with each other what we know about the universe that maybe someone else has never discovered yet.
Well, I think we're all students. We're all students. We all need to learn. Even here in our circle where we are so open talking about various things, we're all still learning. That's why I like your talk.
I think that you have done a stunningly wonderful job of bringing the intricacies of scientific language in an absolutely consistent and real way from beginning to end of your whole poem.
Yeah.
It was you found all of the words from the origin of the various notions of how we came to be and have woven them in rhyme. I honor what you have done here. Thank you. It was very enriching.
Brought to mind the visit we did at the Rose Planetarium many years ago in New York City, which is a gigantic room, I guess you would call it, or exposition, and you start on like the second, third level, and you go around and around and around, and through all the galaxies, and from the Big Bang Theory and all the creation, as you mentioned, the first 9 stanzas, and then you get down to the human level, and in comparison, there's one hair length of how human existence has been in this whole. And I think you captured that beautifully with your 9 stanzas and then 3 small ones for what we have for that little hair.
Part of the reason that I appreciated and decided to use my brother's suggestion on splitting them up into 2 poems was that it did tickle my fancy that if I leave it as 2 different poems, humans are only the very last line in the last stanza of the first poem. Man such as we are, bones of a star. It seems fitting.
I was just delighted because I get very excited about scientific things as well. And I wrote a little story about eukaryotes and prokaryotes, and I named them eukaryotes, which I thought was fun. Because that was the big transition between breathing oxygen and breathing, and anyway, I don't need to go into that. But it was, such an exciting, transformative moment that I wrote a small story about each. And the other thing is about looking to something scientific is, for me, the human body is the most amazing thing. And if I want to do something relaxing, I'll look at an anatomy book, look at the muscles again, look at the nerves, and look at the blood, circulatory system. You look at this part of the brain, and it's just, to me, that's just incredible beauty and amazing. It just amazes me all the time. The fact that so much of it all works without us saying, do this or do that.
Well, I wouldn't. Oh, sorry.
That was really super incredible because for me, that was like a great summary of our modern creation myth. And it brought it all together and it simplified it. And I think, well, that's great because that would be like, that poem is like a great teaching device too for kids and for adults, because it does simplify all of all those terms that I heard in that. Those are the terms that help us to understand reference points for a modern creation myth. It's a really cool summary. I really liked it.
I wouldn't say, to what you were saying, I wouldn't say that only the humans are incredible. The animals, down to the tiny little ant, it's amazing. And my cat, how she knows what's happening outside there, and I have no idea. And all that sort of thing is just incredible. How does it all happen? Where does it all come from? That's what I wanted you to tell me.
It's an inside job, eh?
I don't feel a need to believe in something supernatural or deities or something out there, because we keep finding incredibly deeper and deeper levels of what's in here. The matter and the energy and the ways that it builds this emerging complex set of properties that it didn't have before, like life, like consciousness. It's remarkable. And for all of it to have started so simply and then to add and add and add, and for life to have possibly come out of self-building proteins or possibly RNA, and then build and become cells, and then the cells to eat one another but not digest one another, and all of a sudden we have cells with organelles, we have the eukaryotes. Like, that life is built upon itself. And now, as we sit here, we are trillions of cooperating cells with trillions of non-human cells making us tick.
I think billions, actually.
It's like 100 trillion according to Bruce Lipton, 100 to 200 trillion. But
is it really?
Yeah. 9 out of every 10 though are like actually fungus and bacteria.
Somebody else, they're non-human.
And so it is our modern scientific origin story, but we don't tend to treat it as a spiritual, religious idea, and I think that it is. Now, of course, if science was going to be a proper religion, it would require a lot of extra pieces. We'd have to, as a group, sit down and talk about, what are our ethics or code of conducts? How do we have a contemplative practice? What are our rituals and our ceremonies to mark what we believe is sacred? There would have to be a lot of extra pieces. But I think it is our origin story. It is our worldview. We just don't treat it as sacred. And I think that's a disconnect that I've always been hungry to fill and have bridged. And so this was my attempt to do some bridging for myself.
It was so brilliant. I really enjoyed your presentation. And my special attitude about it is, as a scientist, is trying to understand spirituality. And it's just like that's so big of a project, and we're just at baby steps in that now. But it seems like in the future, it will all become clearer, and hopefully will evolve.
There is so many different religions, and some of them quite large religions with billions of people that believe in them. And there is a lot of value. There is a lot of, I think, social and psychological value that we get. And it's interesting why those practices trigger positive responses in us. And maybe studying them to learn how, for instance, scientific knowledge could trigger some of those responses in us. Like for me, a candle. I have a lot of association spiritually with candles and light and warmth and meaning of a soul, or the light within, light of knowledge. there's many associations, but for me personally, the deepest one is we are, in our body's metabolism, we are a slow burn. Our cellular respiration is taking sugar and burning it and producing, or using oxygen to burn it and producing carbon dioxide. We are fire, controlled. That candle is the same process that's happening within me. It's just less controlled, yet the energy is less utilized. But when I light a candle, I think of the flame burning in me. I think of the metabolism happening that's allowing my body to continue functioning. And so taking ideas from religions and spiritual traditions and saying, how does that speak to me? How does that trigger a sense of awe and wonder and community, and how does that make me feel good? That song, that dance, that ritual, that practice, that thing that we say together when we come together to talk about what is sacred. How can we trigger that when we're talking about science or even other mundane issues in our daily life? So.
Yeah, I think I understand now what you were saying. Really, you're looking at a completely physical and scientific view, and that's great. Yes, and I think all those various religions, they are trying to find the purpose behind it and where it all comes from. I mean, it's fine and dandy. We have people sitting here physically, but where does it come from? What is it? What's all these religions? To me, they're all looking for something. Maybe that's what I get from listening to you.
I think we all are looking for these same sort of answers to the same sort of questions about where do we come from, why are we here, what's our meaning. Science gives us a whole backstory, which is incredibly detailed on what those answers look like. But I think we would have to decide for ourselves, because we would be the meaning makers of the universe. The tiny little fragments of the universe looking back at itself, we are the meaning makers. And so we would have to decide, what's it good for? Well, maybe what's it good for is life. Maybe the purpose of the universe was to bring around life. I don't know, but it gives us another way to access those age-old questions.
All these religions are thinking of them as like different lenses that we can put on and see from different points of view. And they're all valid, and they're all trying to get us to see the God within it, or the awe, what's behind it, all these stories. So I think of each religion as kind of like a different lens of reality. And I can see how alchemy can, for some people, bridge the science and spirituality. It's absolutely incredible, all these different creation myths and how they can answer each individual a different story that's compatible with them.
But to me then, I don't know if I said that before, but to me then religions is that we're always searching for the meaning. And yeah, basically searching for the meaning while we're here.
And science definitely has an ongoing search. We've uncovered a lot, but we've got so much more to uncover that we don't even know about yet. And so that's what's so fun, is we get to continue discovering.
I think
I'd
it's fascinating.
just like to add something too here. It's been my joy in the last 3 years that I've spent 40 years of my life studying A Course in Miracles of spiritual teaching. And my passion has always been with sciences as well. And so I have found a joy in being able to offer at Learning in Retirement courses, which I call Open to a New Perception. And what I have found is that I can take the teachings of the spiritual teachings of A Course in Miracles, and I can find them in all different sciences. So what I do is I show videos to the classroom. So for example, Bruce Lipton on epigenetics. And then I show neuroscience speakers, usually PhD level people, quantum physics as well, consciousness studies, even going back to the origins of man through archaeology. And I've been doing this now for 3 years, and it just is so mind expanding, because the actual videos that I can find on YouTube, which we have probably 1 million videos to choose from, they're there. It just takes a lot of hunting to actually find them, but when I do, then in the class I could show like a 40-minute video, and then we can have an hour discussion afterwards, and I can bridge both the science and the spirituality through that method. It's really, I feel it really has worked very well.
I'm taking those classes, yes, they're wonderful. Yeah.
Amazing how many people have been coming.
Yes, 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 it is, and actually Anne was in the class too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we still haven't found the solution, I
It's the search.
Did you?
Yeah, searching.
Might take a while.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I think a lot of great scientists and naturalists actually study science and nature in order to appreciate God's creation.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are synergistic with that higher state of creativity. I think having an understanding of the intention and the miraculousness of biology or any physical science completely, it is an understanding of creation in a way. I think or intelligence. I think that those two go together. And what's the whistling?
Anne's hearing
Anne's
it.
hearing
Oh,
it,
are you?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then I also think that a lot of conventional religions give a incomplete idea, kind of like what Dan was saying, but also some are making complete errors. They think that there's been some corruptness in the development of religion, sort of take us away from the truth, to understand the truth, if you want to call it scientific truth or just physical truth. And then another big important point that I have in my own heart is that just because it's science doesn't mean it's correct. Just because it's science or you're using a scientific method, that does not mean it's correct. It's a man-made method. It's a man-made method, and also about the religion or spirituality, higher state of being and understanding would dictate what type of science you would want to study. Why would you study it? Where's your state of mind as far as approaching a certain state of science? I like Amanda's general take on appreciating and loving the chemistry and the interconnectedness and the genius of everything in the universe, and the BAM and miraculousness, and infinitely more than we'll ever know. But as far as science in itself, where's your state of mind? I think that GMO has got some real arrogance to it as far as what's going on with that. Yeah, I just think it's important to maybe be open to a higher state of being and incorporate with science.
Can I offer one little thing from Albert Einstein, who said that everything that you can count doesn't count. Everything that you can't count counts.
Nice.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Yeah, I must say though that I've studied the same subjects you are. I'm a chemist, physics and mathematics, always been interested in that. So, yeah, so I'm not really dumb, I just try to understand things.
Well, I mean, it's so complex, and we all feel like we're dumb when we start. And we make mistakes. A lot of the body of scientific knowledge is incorrect at the beginning. And then we uncover a deeper level of understanding, and we change the knowledge.
And then it's still incorrect.
Well, it's an approximation. It approaches the limit of what we could know.
Yes.
It's just the limit approaches closer and closer. It will never be complete, but I like that it is self-correcting.
Adapting, yeah.
I wanted to, Jason?
Yes.
Marcia.
I know. Hi.
Hi. In response to what you just said, I found the concept of the scientific method, which, as you say, was human created,
Sure. Yeah.
to be lacking in emotional intelligence.
Absolutely it is.
But I do see today that there is a greater recognition in the world of science that emotional intelligence is a factor. And that gives me heart. And I try to contribute to that. And I think that's part of why we are all here, is that we are all contributing to that.
Well, that's more or less what I meant. Sorry, are you still talking?
Yeah. And again, I want to commend Amanda for sharing with us a recognition of all of that, as well as ending it, which you can separate them if you like. I can't. With the reminder.
It isn't really separate.
Yes, it's a brief addendum, yes. Your last stanza is a call to attention and a call to action on the part of the souls of all of us, and I really appreciated that.
It was for me as well.
The Unitarian hymnal has wonderful readings in the back, and I kind of think this belongs there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
There's some fabulous readings in the back of the hymnal.
Well, we can add it to our hymnal.
Well, we can have our
Make our own.
I think we should.
It's a great idea.
We should remember this.
Absolutely.
Both,
It's worth reading it
thank you.
more times.
Both my grandfather and my mother periodically write sermons for the Anglican Church and read them. And they taught me that when you bring people to a dark and heavy place in the sermon, you can't abandon them there. You have to bring them back up. So after I talked about like underpaid classes and greenhouse gases, I realized I had one last stanza and something like, I don't remember what it was, but like 20 or 30 words to try and bring back up. So I wrote the last stanza for hope for myself. Truth singer, bell ringer, it's words for myself. No one else could have written a required course of action for me as strong as I wrote for myself. That is the standard which I should hold myself to, because it is my synthesis of my origin story. I needed to bring myself to the dark and then back out to the light.
And,
Read it once more. Read the last verse once more. It's worth reading.
Okay, sure.
It's okay.
So, in closing, truth singer, bell ringer, sentry shake up, gently wake up, conflict mediate, hope demonstrate, decisions to make, culture quake, community spirit, sovereignty cheer it, earthly well-being, compassion freeing, sanctify feeling, signify healing, remember to give to all who live. Occupy your uprising, be surprising. Activism is doable. Life is renewable.
Nice.